Hello, my name is Daryl Thompson, and today we are starting a series of videos on the CAGED system. What is the CAGED system, and how does knowing it help us to become a better guitarist? As you move through each video in this series, I will be taking you from level to level in the CAGED system, helping you to master not only the foundational concepts of the system, but all the way through to the master level, so that you can take this and use it to help you to play your guitar well. Now, if you don't want to miss out on any of the videos that I'm about to release in this series, then go ahead and subscribe, and don't forget to tap that bell so that you're notified when I release new videos. Let's get started. Now, you might be asking the question,
okay, what is the CAGED system?
well, the simplest definition of the CAGED system is to say that it is a system that splits our guitar neck into 5 distinct sections. And each of those sections contains the notes of the major scale, and with those notes, we build our 5 open chords. Now, that's not to say we can only build our 5 open chords, that's C, A, G, E, and D. We can then build all sorts of weird and wonderful chords, bar chords, and chords that have names that you can barely pronounce. So ultimately, the CAGED system helps us to master this fretboard, to know what we can do with it, to make the most of it. Now, you may or you may not have grasped everything that I just said there. So to help you with understanding what the CAGED system does, I'm going to share with you the story of how I learned the CAGED system. I started playing guitar when I was 15, which is pretty late in life. But since then, I've been playing in church bands and secular bands, and I even taught music in a college. Now, I started playing 27 years ago, which I know means you can work out how old I am. So go ahead, I'll give you a moment. Now, my dad also plays guitar, so when I started to show an interest in guitar, he did me the biggest favor by teaching me 3 chords. I think they were G, C, and D, and they go like this. Now, once I knew those 3 chords, nothing could stop me. I don't think my dad taught me another guitar lesson after that. I was on a mission. I was determined to figure out how this guitar worked. Now, I learned a lot, but the thing is, I didn't go for guitar lessons. And looking back, I don't think that was a wise move, because as much as I was learning a lot, some of the things that I was learning were adding things to me that were not good. So, for example, when we play guitar, a lot of what we do on a guitar has to do with how our body responds to this instrument. And if we learn things incorrectly, we can get our body, our hands and our arms, our whole body can be tense, and so that can cause damage. And to unlearn that is a huge pain in the neck, and that's what I experienced. So I would recommend, if you're really serious about this guitar playing journey, glean from people who have knowledge about this, people who have success in this area. And the great thing is that we have things like YouTube, where people like me are giving their knowledge, they're sharing it freely with you, and it comes to you at no cost. So going back to my journey of learning the guitar, I remember putting together a piece like this. Now, that might have sounded nice, and believe me, the way I just played it now was a lot better than when I first wrote it, but it took me a really long time to work out. I mean, I was sitting there fumbling through notes, trying to work out which note works. That note doesn't work very well. It was almost like I was in a jungle with a machete, and I'm hacking my way through, trying to find my way through this jungle. This fretboard was like no man's land. I didn't have a clue what worked and what didn't. So there I am. I'm going, okay, this note, no, that note. And it just took me way too long. So this is how I was thinking. When it came to the first 3 frets of the fretboard, this is where I was safe. I knew my 9, maybe 10 chords, and so when I played in that area, I was safe. But to go beyond that, only the bravest dare venture. But I was determined. I was going to find out how this sucker worked, and so I pushed on. So this is how that journey started. I knew the chord E, or E major, which is an open chord meaning that parts of all notes that are being played in that chord ring on strings that are going all the way to the nut. So we've got the E, B, and E, high E strings are ringing at the nut, so we call it an open chord. Now, what I did is I saw other guitarists were playing higher up here on the neck, and so I just went, you know what, let's try and see if something will work. So I took the E chord and I began experimenting with it. Then between seeing other guitarists playing up here, but their first finger seemed to be right across all the strings of the fretboard, plus with me understanding that the nut is where the strings are cut off when I play open chords, I kind of stumbled across this. I thought to myself that if I take the E chord and I change it so that I free up my first finger, so I play the E chord with these 3 fingers, and then move my whole hand 1 fret up. Now my first finger is barring, the word is bar, barring across those strings that the nut was normally cutting off. So then I play it, oh, and then I move it up again. How high can I go with this? And then I got all the way up to there, and I'm thinking to myself, this is exciting. But then this is the next thing I thought about. Okay, if I can do that with an open E chord, what about the other 4 open chords, the C, A, G, and the D chords? So let me try it with C. So I took the C chord, which is from the A string down. I swapped it out so that my first finger is now free, and then I moved it up 1 fret. And again. And you can do that with A, using those 3 fingers, freeing up your first finger. Now I was playing in bigger parts of higher parts of the neck, and I wasn't too scared about doing it. I didn't feel like I was in no man's land. Now I encourage you to do the same thing. Take the 5 open chords, which are C, A, G, E, and D. And then what you want to do is free up your first finger so that it can bar the strings that the nut is normally cutting off. And to free up that first finger, you're going to have to play those chords with the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th fingers on your left hand. So that means you'll be doing just like I showed you, shift up 1 fret, use your first finger to bar, and then experiment with all of that. See what you can come up with. So I fumbled around with these chords for some time and I made some progress, but it was only when I started taking music theory lessons and guitar lessons that I was finally able to understand why these chords were called major chords and what notes made up these major chords and how I could take these chords and turn them into minor chords and diminished and augmented, and the sky became the limit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let you find out about all of that in my next video, which means I'm going to remind you, don't forget to subscribe.